So this is a really easy way to make horns using materials you most likely already have. I started by cutting 1.5-inch strips of cardboard of assorted lengths. I'll have the length listed on the screen as I shape each piece. I shaped the pieces by pinching and bending them so they started to curve. Then I placed a small amount of hot glue along one edge of the strip and stuck it to the other edge. And once the glue was cool but it hadn't set, I used my fingers to push the glue into the seam. The heat doesn't really bother my fingers since I have some calluses from working with my hands and mold making, but you could use a popsicle stick to smooth out the glue instead. I repeated the process for all of the loops. For these horns, I had 11 loops, but you could use more or less depending on how big you want the horns. Once I had all my loops, it was time to assemble. I started with the biggest loop and placed the next largest inside of it. Since I modeled these horns after ram horns, which are curved, you have to angle the loops a certain way to achieve a nice curve. You want the loop to be deepest inside the bigger loop at the back and to one side. On this horn, it's deeper on my right, so the horn will curve that direction. When making a pair, you want one to curve to the left and one to curve to the right. When positioning the loops, I like to glue them in the back first so I can adjust the position just how I want it, then I secure it in place with more glue. And you just keep putting the loops in place until you've attached them all to the horn. For the pointed tip of the horn, I made a small cone out of some air dry clay and glued it in place. Now for the paint. You can do whatever color scheme you want, but I kept it pretty neutral. I started with a base coat of a warm dark brown, and I used plain acrylic paint, nothing fancy. Once the base coat was dry, I dry brushed a deep gray over top to start adding texture. As you can see in the background, I wiped the majority of the paint off of my brush onto the plate so I can get a very light application of color. Next, I dry brushed a light brown to start highlighting the horn a bit. Then I dry brushed an even lighter brown over top for even more texture. This is a different horn than I used in my Aries tutorial, but it is the same technique and size, and just as I did on those, I finished the paint job with a light dry brushed layer of silver. So there it is, a super quick and easy way to make horns, and to wear them I just attached bobby pins to the underside and then slid them on a thin wire headband, but you could also just attach them directly to a wig or your hair with the bobby pins. Congratulations, you have made it to my end screen. Click that top link to check out my Aries tutorial, or click that bottom link to check out my last video. Click that little square to check out my Patreon, and if you want to make sure you don't miss a single video from me in the future, click that little circle with my face in it to subscribe.